The Troadec family disappearance. What I'm about to tell you is the story of how 4 people vanished without leaving a single clue. How French police found themselves facing an impossible crime scene, and how one tiny detail discovered weeks later made everything even more terrifying. This isn't just another missing persons case. This is the story of the Troadec family. 4 people who disappeared so completely that investigators began to wonder if they were dealing with something beyond normal human capability. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this case broke every rule of how people disappear. You'll learn about the evidence that shouldn't exist, and you'll discover why, 7 years later, French authorities still can't explain what happened in that house on February 16, 2017. Because sometimes the most chilling mysteries aren't about what we find, they're about what we don't find. And what we found in the Troadec house was nothing. Absolutely nothing. Which, as you'll see, was the most terrifying discovery of all.
The Troadecs were ordinary people living an ordinary life in Orvault, France. Pascal, 49, managed a manufacturing company. Brigitte, 48, worked part-time at a boutique and grew roses that made the neighbors jealous. Their son Sebastian, 21, was studying engineering. Daughter Charlotte, 18, was home from her first semester of college with perfect grades. They did everything together. Sunday dinners, holiday traditions, family movie nights. Close-knit doesn't begin to describe it. And everything was normal. No debts, no enemies, no family drama, except for one small argument that happened weeks before they disappeared. An argument that would later consume every headline in France. But we'll get to that. For now, you need to understand, these were people who answered their phones, who showed up to work, who called their relatives every week. Predictable, reliable, boring in the best possible way. And everything was normal. Until 1 minute changed everything.
February 16th, 2017 started like any Thursday. Pascal kissed Brigitte goodbye and went to work. Charlotte was unpacking from college, excited about celebrating her grades. Sebastian was studying for midterm exams. Brigitte ran errands and called her sister for an hour of family gossip. At 3 p.m., Brigitte seemed genuinely happy on that phone call. No stress, no worry, no hint that anything was wrong. She was excited about dinner. They were celebrating Charlotte's academic success with sushi from their favorite restaurant. Pascal came home at 6 p.m., waved to the neighbors like he did every single day. At 7:30, Brigitte drove to pick up the sushi order. The restaurant staff remembered her. She was cheerful, maybe more than usual. She mentioned it was a celebration. She drove home, parked in the driveway, walked through the front door with dinner for 4 people. That was 7:41 p.m. By morning, they were gone. All 4 of them. And what they left behind, well, let me tell you about the most disturbing crime scene in French history.
Friday morning, Brigitte's sister Marie-Christine tried calling. No answer. She tried again at noon. Still nothing. By afternoon, she was driving to their house because the Troadecs always answered their phones. The house looked normal from outside. Car in the driveway, curtains drawn, everything peaceful. Marie-Christine knocked, called out, walked around back. Silence. Complete, unnatural silence. She used her spare key and stepped inside. The house was pristine, not a thing out of place. No signs of struggle, no overturned furniture, no broken glass. It looked like a showroom, but something was wrong. Houses where people live have sounds, electronics humming, wood creaking, life happening. This house had none of that. She called their names. Her voice echoed in a way that voices shouldn't echo in a furnished home. Then she found the kitchen.
4 place settings on the kitchen counter. 4 plates, 4 sets of chopsticks, 4 glasses of water. The sushi containers were there,
Some opened, some still sealed. But here's what made Marie-Christine's skin crawl. One piece of sushi had a single bite taken out of it. An open packet of wasabi sat next to an untouched cup of soy sauce. Someone had just started eating. And everything was wrong. The silence, the stillness. It was like walking onto a movie set between takes, except the actors had vanished mid-scene. Who or what makes 4 people stand up from dinner and disappear without a sound, without finishing a sentence, without clearing a plate, or even setting down their chopsticks? Marie-Christine searched every room. Pascal's wallet on the nightstand, Brigitte's purse on the dresser, keys inside. Sebastian's textbooks open on his desk, notes scattered like he'd been studying minutes before. Charlotte's suitcase half unpacked, laptop plugged in and charging. And their phones. All 4 phones plugged into chargers, but completely dead. Not low battery, dead like they'd been turned off for hours. But that's impossible. People don't turn off their phones and then plug them into charge, unless someone wanted to make sure they couldn't be tracked.
When police arrived, they didn't initially treat it as a crime scene. No evidence of crime, no signs of forced entry, no blood, no violence. Just absence. Captain Dubois had worked missing persons for 15 years. He'd never seen anything like this. It was like they'd been raptured, he told reporters. 4 people, gone in an instant. The neighbors had heard nothing. No shouting, no car engines, no door slamming, nothing. The family to the left was watching TV in their living room, a room that shares a wall with the Troadec kitchen. They would have heard raised voices. They heard silence. Phone records showed the last call was Brigitte's conversation with her sister Thursday afternoon. After that, nothing. Bank accounts showed no unusual activity. No travel bookings, no large withdrawals. But when police ran a forensic analysis on that interrupted dinner, they discovered something that changed everything.
Remember that sushi dinner? Security cameras showed Brigitte leaving the restaurant at 7:33 p.m. 8-minute drive home. She arrived at 7:41 p.m. The forensic team tested the food. It had been sitting at room temperature for 14 to 16 hours when they found it. That means the family sat down to eat around 8 p.m. Thursday night, started their meal, and then something happened. Something that made 4 people abandon dinner without making a sound. The neighbors were home until 11 p.m. They would have heard car doors, voices, footsteps, but they heard nothing. It's like the Troadec family vanished between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. without disturbing the air around them. But wait. Remember those dead phones? When police analyzed the cell tower data, they found something that made investigators start questioning the laws of physics.
Pascal's phone, last signal at 8:17 p.m. Brigitte's phone, last signal at 8:19 p.m. Sebastian's phone, last signal at 8:21 p.m. Charlotte's phone, last signal at 8:23 p.m. 6 minutes. 4 phones going offline in sequence, 2 minutes apart each. But here's what made the technical team exchange worried glances. None of the phones had been turned off. They'd been connected to chargers all night. The cables were plugged in, the phones were charging, but they'd somehow stopped communicating with cell towers. The phone company ran every test they could think of. The towers were working perfectly. No service outages, no technical problems. It was like something had created a dead zone around the Troadec house for exactly 6 minutes. Long enough for 4 phones to go silent. Long enough for 4 people to disappear. One investigator whispered what everyone was thinking. This feels like someone who knew exactly what they were doing. 3 weeks into the investigation, police finally got a warrant to examine Sebastian's computer. Maybe he'd been talking to someone online.
Maybe they were emails, social media messages, some digital trail that would explain where the family had gone. The tech team spent hours going through his hard drive, and what they found was nothing. Engineering homework, photos from college, a few downloaded movies, the digital life of a completely normal 21-year-old student. But buried in his browser history, they found something strange. In the weeks before the disappearance, someone had been researching how cell phone towers work, how GPS tracking functions, how long it takes for a missing person report to trigger a police investigation. Was Sebastian planning something, or was someone else using his computer? The searches had been deleted, but not completely, and they'd all been done late at night when the rest of the family was asleep. If the family planned to disappear, why leave dinner on the table? If someone killed them, how did they do it without noise or traces? If they were kidnapped, why hasn't anyone demanded ransom?
By week 2, the Troadec case was international news. Hundreds of volunteers searched forests around Orvault. They dragged pawns, combed through abandoned buildings, followed every possible lead. Nothing. 4 people had vanished more completely than should be possible in our surveilled, connected world. The investigation expanded across Europe. Airports, train stations, border crossings. Facial recognition systems, social media monitoring, credit card tracking. Every tool of modern law enforcement focused on finding one family. 7 years later, they're still missing. 4 people who managed to disappear so completely it's like they never existed. But that argument I mentioned earlier, the family dispute that consumed French headlines, 3 months after the disappearance, police discovered what it was about, and it changed everything they thought they knew about the Troadec family. The argument was about money. Specifically, about 300,000 euros that Pascal's father had left to the family when he died the previous year. Money that was supposed to be split between Pascal and his brother, Hubert. But Pascal had kept it all, and Hubert had found out. Police records showed Hubert had been making threatening phone calls for weeks. He demanded his share of the inheritance. He'd accused Pascal of theft. And on February 15th, one day before the disappearance, Hubert had driven from his home in Brittany to Orvault. Security cameras at a gas station show him buying gasoline and plastic sheeting at 6 p.m. that evening. He was arrested 6 months later, and during his interrogation, he finally told police what happened that Thursday night.
They didn't vanish. They didn't disappear into thin air. They were murdered by someone who knew exactly how to make 4 bodies disappear without a trace. Hubert Troadec confessed to killing his brother's entire family in a rage over the stolen inheritance. He'd waited until they sat down for dinner, then, well, the details are too disturbing to share here. But he never told police where the bodies are. Even now, serving life in prison, he claims he can't remember what he did with them. 4 people, gone forever. And somewhere in the French countryside, they're still waiting to be found. The house in Orvault sits empty. New owners say it still feels wrong somehow, like it's waiting for something that will never happen. And everything was normal until 1 minute changed everything.